Welcome to the Inner Fire Climbing Podcast. I am Jesse Firestone. Getting into the swing of things here with the pod. I think I'll start having 2 guests a month, seeing as how I recorded this interview a month ago. I feel like I go out climbing on a Tuesday, and when I get home, it's Sunday, or I get up from my desk to get a snack, and a month passes. I'm not sure what that is, but I sure wish it would slow down a little bit. My guest today is Juliet Hammer. Juliet is a climbing coach and an experienced boulderer and sport climber. She has a degree in biology, and she also has a CSCS, so Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. Although we didn't really talk about training all that much, to be honest. We did talk about her climbing and her history with climbing, differences between bouldering and sport climbing in terms of preparation and tactics and mindset, being a short climber. She has some short climber tips in there. Board climbing, especially on the moon board. There's quite a bit of shop talk between 2 coaches who both own their own business and coach a lot of climbers one-on-one. And towards the final third or so, I think we got into a really good discussion on social media, content creation, dopamine hits, value capture, all that good stuff. Re-listening to this to edit it after a month was really cool because I got to hear the intentions that I was setting for myself a month ago and compare them to the decisions I actually made with my climbing this season. I always kind of do that with my training log, but there was something kind of powerful about hearing those intentions out loud in my own voice. Just a reminder that the show is supported by my patrons. You can find that at patreon.com/jfireclimbing. Patrons get first dibs on my monthly AMA questions. They can occasionally ask questions of the guests directly. They get discounts on some of my stuff, first dibs on merch. I'll have new merch coming out pretty soon. There's actually a preview of that on Patreon now. I think it's pretty cool. And a bunch of other coaching content and goodies. So head on over to Patreon if you would like to support the show. Juliet is easy to talk to, so we just jump right into chatting. Without further ado, Juliet Hammer. How is it down there? It's like, is it winding down? Is it hot?
It's definitely getting too hot for bouldering, but I've been getting on a rope, so it's kind of ideal right now, but if it starts getting too much warmer, it'll be less ideal, but still climbable. Yeah, there's still plenty of shady spots, and I run cold, I guess, so the warmer temps I don't mind as much.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've always found them like a little bit less annoying with sport climbing unless it's got a super hard crux or something. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like spread out over so many more moves. It doesn't tend to be quite as dramatic as it is with bouldering, where there's just like one hold you just can't hold on to.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You guys have so much of both down there.
Yeah. Although I will say that the sport climbing around Chattanooga sometimes does just revolve around a boulder. It's very bouldery sport climbing, which has its pros and cons, but it's definitely can be challenging.
Yeah. Do you have like, do you particularly identify with one or the other, or are you boulder and sport climber?
It's evolved over time, I suppose. Yeah, so I grew up in Virginia and went to school in Virginia and would go to the New when I was in college and sport climb, and then would also boulder down in Boone. So I was kind of like split, but then I moved to Colorado and was definitely like just a boulderer out there. But now that I've moved back to the Southeast, I bouldered the first few seasons, and now I feel a little bit tapped out on the bouldering, so I've been sport climbing more. But I don't know if I'm truly a full sport climber yet. I feel like there's a lot of things that I can gain proficiency in when it comes to sport climbing. But yeah,
it's so skill based and like mindset, like not that you don't need those things to be a good boulderer. You obviously do, but I feel like bouldering is very, very movement driven, and sport climbing is still super movement driven, but it's just so unforgiving on the mindset and on the like tactics and stuff, because you just, you get 20 feet up the route and you've done some hard climbing and you're like, oh, I like made some, I didn't tape my finger, or I like put my knee pad on slightly wrong or something, and like that's your try and you get 2 tries today.
Exactly. Ugh. Yeah, it's like definitely just the limited number of tries where I don't know, I'm still like I've been kind of ramping up with it, but like, and I'm finally feeling like I have my endurance and like capacity is improved, but like I still feel like I get like one good burn. And then if I do that, and like even if I rest an hour, my second go is still just like, it's just not as good as the first.
You don't have quite as much power on the second try.
But I think it's just also just need to keep going out and gaining capacity and hopefully get to a point where I have more good goes in me.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like a seasonality to which things you choose to do? Because I've coached some people in Chattanooga, so I know the season is like kind of almost brutally long in terms of like weather potential for weather windows. Mm-hmm. And then summer is really rough. So you just have this very clear on and off sort of season compared to a lot of places. But how does that work with the sport climbing? Is it like on the shoulders?
Yeah, so you can definitely start sport climbing earlier than bouldering. Like the bouldering, if you're like wanting good conditions, it's like it really doesn't start till like mid-November probably. Mm. And then depending on the year, you can get decent temps through February or mid-March. Because sometimes we'll just like, it'll warm up and then we'll like still have a random week where like we get a cold snap or whatever. So that's kind of like the bouldering season. And then sport climbing, I feel like definitely you can start in like October. September's still a bit sweaty and like maybe a little too early, which is what I did this year and learned like, okay, that was I just got antsy and just started a little too early. But I feel like October, maybe mid-October, and then some people sport climb through the summer here, but which is amazing. But I feel like I usually wrap up like mid-May sport climbing.
Okay, yeah, so you get a solid like 3 months or something of sport climbing.
Yeah, and then for me, like usually January is too cold for me to even like want to boulder. So I usually kind of take that month as like like holidays, and then January as like okay, like let's just step back a little bit and do some training and like not get burnt out.
Gotcha.
But that's me. I feel like everyone's different, and some people just like can be psyched for the entire. Some people complain about the season being too short here, so
yeah.
I'm like, I don't have a problem.
It's definitely different in the Northwest. I don't think our weather's as extreme, but I find myself like there's just a certain time of year where I have to have this conversation with myself like, okay, I'm still going to go outside like once or twice a week, but I'm just going outside to like go outside. I'm not going outside to like try to send stuff anymore. And there's usually like 3 weeks or something or longer where I'm going outside and I'm still trying to send because I haven't had that conversation with myself, and it's just so miserable. And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm just going out because I like trees and stuff. I'm not actually out here to climb anymore. It's way too hot. Yeah.
What's the season like for you guys?
It's like shoulder seasons where I live, really, like spring and fall. So it's like yesterday was just a beautiful spring day. It's like shorts and sunglasses weather until the sun goes behind the hill, and then as soon as the sun's behind the hill, it's like crispy and like really good conditions. So nice. Yeah, we're entering the good time for sure. Yeah,
that sounds pretty ideal. I know that you all have to deal with a lot of like just navigating rain, and can probably depend a lot or change a lot year to year.
Yeah, we had like 2 spring fake outs where it was like really good for a few days, and then it'll just rain for like another 10 days right after that or something, and you're like, it's spring, but it's not. And last year spring was like long, like people were climbing well into June, so nice. Fingers crossed, but you just have no idea what it's going to be like. It could be 80 degrees in April and stay that way, and then it's kind of just over either way. So that's like part of the fun of being a climber, is like getting to know the region and like falling into the rhythms and like learning from other people around you what they do, and finding all the sort of nuances of like how you can keep keep yourself motivated and stuff. So it's cool.
Yep, it is. Well, in areas like ours, for sure. I feel like when I used to live in Colorado, it was the opposite problem. It was like I would feel guilty for not going out every day. It was nice, but it was like nice every day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a trap, I find. Like, I didn't get an off season last year because we went to Squamish for 2 months, and I was like so tired through the whole winter just because I didn't really like, I'm so used to that like wave of like, now I'm mostly climbing, now I'm mostly training, now I'm mostly climbing, and like just mostly climbing for like 9 months straight. I was like, wow, I'm really tired.
Yeah.
Just kind of going hard. Do you during the season, you said you kind of step back in the holidays in January. So do you do more strength training and like board climbing during that phase?
Yeah, I guess definitely ramp up just do kind of like a touch up of strength training. And then as far as the climbing goes, I think I just almost kind of don't keep things too structured. I kind of just like let it be like let me just like chill out mentally a little bit and not like, yeah, because in season, I'm fortunate enough to where I can kind of pick and choose the days that I go out, and because I have a flexible schedule, but it does get like mentally tiring where you're just chasing the weather and rearranging your entire schedule around which days are nice, and it's nice to take a break from that and just be like, I'm just gonna go to the gym when I feel like it and climb a little and strength train and yeah, not worry too much about it.
Yeah, take the approach of like deciding on the day what you want to do or if you want to climb, rather than being like, I'm going to climb, every other day, or I'm going to climb like 1 on 2 off or 2 on 1 off or whatever, and like kind of dictating it ahead of time versus just like letting it be what it is basically and letting your body kind of dictate it. That's really smart. That's really healthy.
I've learned through the years for sure. Yeah, I've burned myself out previously, and like kind of learned that honestly in Colorado, where the alpine season, it's like you can climb all summer, but like for me, definitely kind of the heart of summer, July, like early August, it's pretty hot there still, because you just get blasted by the sun, and it's not that much cold, like that cold up there even in the summer. So I kind of learned through trying to like push through an entire alpine season and then getting like burnt out by the time things cooled down and were actually good, that I was like, okay, I need to break things up, because for me personally, I just can't push through like that.
Yeah, it's a super high volume of stuff too, being in the alpine. Like the high, like living here in the Northwest, like people will complain about a boulder that's like 10-minute uphill hike, and it can be like a really steep uphill hike, but at the end of the day, it's 10 minutes at 1,000 feet elevation. It's not like, you go to just like chaos, like not even mid chaos, like Lake Hiaha or whatever is like 2 miles or something like that,
Yeah, it's
like a solid 45 minutes of hiking.
Yeah, it's a very solid buy-in.
Yeah.
Full day. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just in terms of calories burned, that's kind of a lot of effort. So I can see that definitely being draining to do that for an entire summer.
Yeah, but yeah, the people in Colorado are amazing. They do it. And
you get used to it. Yeah, I remember I spent a fall there, and then I remember coming back to the Northwest and being like, I wasn't really climbing like crazy well or anything like that, but my overall fitness, like I could just be out all day. Every approach seemed so minor here.
Yeah. The last time I moved to the Southeast from Colorado in 2021, like beginning of the year. And the last time that I took a trip there was in like fall of 2021. And I feel like I hadn't been gone long enough to like detrain that much, I guess. I was worried, but it came back quick. But now it's been a few years, and I'd like to go back this summer, and I'm a little nervous about it.
A little scared. What elevation is Chattanooga at?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Nothing noticeable?
No, nothing noticeable. I will say, at least like with the sport climbing I've been doing, the bouldering here is like so accessible and chill, and it's great. And there's like no hikes. Everything's just right there. But with the sport climbing, at least I'm doing some more hiking, and I'm like, okay, hopefully this is doing something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more
the elevation.
More, yeah.
The elevation is just a hard thing to get ahead of, for sure, with a trip like that. If you have like a month or something, then you're good. But like a week, it's really hard to be prepared for it.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just started talking, but thanks for coming on the show. I think you're my third guest.
Yay! Thanks for having me.
Now that we're like 15 minutes in, do you want to introduce you? I'll introduce you at the top, but do you want to give us your own introduction of yourself?
Sure. Hello, I am Juliet Hammer. I'm a climbing coach based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I've been climbing for 20 years, had a background in competition climbing when I was a youth, and then did a handful of open competitions, but after graduating college, I have primarily been an outdoor climber. Spent 6 years in Colorado, where I mostly bouldered, and now I'm back in the Southeast and splitting my time between bouldering and sport climbing now.
Cool. Yeah. You don't still really compete at all?
No, I do a token like one competition a year, and I hate it every time. Even though I know it's like it's good for me in that it's challenging and super uncomfortable, but I'm like, okay, cool, I'm good for a year. It's usually something just local, at a local gym or something like that. Just
to kind of get that the buzz or like that you get from being like, ooh, I'm gonna like compete tomorrow, and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna compete later today. It's like stressful.
Yeah, it's so stressful, but it's like a good challenge where it's just like, okay, like, you know, it's just a completely different set of constraints of trying to get your top 5 boulders or whatever, and having all brand new climbs and trying to get them done in a 3-hour session or whatever.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It's a test.
Yeah, it is.
I've definitely seen you do some like cordo stuff on your Instagram, so I know you're like pretty okay at that stuff.
I am okay, but I think the step between okay and good is like far.
Well, it's like evolving so fast. Like you walk into any gym now and there's going to be tons of that stuff. It's just very like normal now, which is really the last 5 years, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely taken off. I do think that one of the challenges of improving with it is just being able to practice at an appropriate level. Because, the competition I most recently did, I feel like it was in the fall. And, just like one of the finals boulders was like you like feet off, you're swinging, kind of lache-like, and you were supposed to like jump onto a volume and then jump and paddle. And I was just like, couldn't. It was terrible. It was like 4 minutes of people watching me just like not do this move, and I was like, I've literally never done a move like this before, and this is definitely not the difficulty at which I would like be able to learn it.
Right. It's like it was like too high on the scale. It's like stress instead of like appropriate challenge level, basically.
Yeah. I was like, I would need like a V1 version of this to start with, and a finals competition difficulty boulder was like not where it was going to happen.
Yeah. And at least for me, like the risk factor is huge for learning. Like I'll happily do like coordinate like a little like run across move like right on the ground, you know, or I'll even do like a paddle move if it's like the second move of the thing or something. But like sometimes there's a little like step across to the finish hold, you know, like up off the ground, and I'm like, oh, this is not the right time for me to learn this new skill.
No, too many factors.
Yeah, maybe if I could like be on top rope or something, if they set that on a rope, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan of the final move being just something very risky feeling.
It's intense. It's definitely different. Do you coach people who just climb in the gym purely, or do you feel like you coach mostly people who climb outside?
Yeah, I would say pretty much all of my clients have outdoor objectives, or I guess their goals aren't geared towards gym climbing.
Yeah, okay. So they like do climb in the gym a lot, but they have a trip or like projects outside that they're like
Totally.
more motivated on. Yeah, I kind of wonder if that's our mutual content that we create, and the fact that we climb outside a lot and post about climbing outside a lot. Because I don't really know any coaches who are more purely indoor focused, but I'm sure that they're out there somewhere. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. Or at least like hybrid. I feel like people who come from maybe a youth background, youth coaching background, or have youth clients. But I feel like maybe the adult climbers who are focused on that probably have someone in person. I don't know. I can see how that would be like a challenge to do remotely.
For sure. So that's kind of where I was going, is I find cordo to be something that's like really interesting to try to talk about remotely. Like the fundamentals of like, okay, you're climbing up a 30-degree panel on like crimps and footholds. There's just so much that's like controllable and understandable about it, even if the camera angle's not like dead on. But I feel cordos, there's so many things happening so fast. It's like you really have to like break it into these little discrete pieces. And I'm willing to confess that I'm not an expert on coordination climbing. So
Yeah, me neither. It's like I feel like I can understand what's supposed to happen.
yeah,
Even for myself when I'm trying a move. Like that example from that competition. Like I was like, I understand what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know how to it's just something like as a coach that I'm not really able to or yeah, I just like don't have the experience doing or haven't practiced how to like actually cue yourself through moves like that. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, there's a humility to our job, I feel like, of being like, yeah, at least I feel like my job is like to help the person figure it out, because if I just go in assuming that my ideas are better than theirs, that is going to backfire every time. You know what I mean?
For sure. And definitely like, I think that's something I learned when I first started, is like, I think, yeah, the humility part of it of like, you know, my ideas could be total shit because I don't know. I'm not like the one there on the climb. And I can look at a video and be like, oh, yeah, this is like obviously what you're supposed to do. And then they try it and it's like not at all. So it's,
and you might even be right for yourself, like that it would be what you would do, but it's like not the thing for that person, you know? I find that really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely, yeah, just helping people work through that process.
Do you wind up coaching a lot of people who are around the area you are, like on, you know, they're climbing on boulders and routes that you're familiar with? Does that happen a lot?
I have a few clients, more, in the southeast region, but I actually have a lot of people kind of in the West Coast too. I guess I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to like travel to different places and have some familiarity with a handful of different places, but definitely a lot of climbs that I've never been on or heard of, or
Yeah, it's very interesting for me, having climbed in the Northwest so much, like the difference between coaching someone here who's like working their way through all the things that I, you know, was working my way through back in the day versus coaching people in places like like I've never been to Chattanooga, you know, and I've climbed on sandstone, I've climbed in Font, which I hear is like fairly similar and stuff, but you know, obviously it's a different set of things, and it's so 3D that a lot of that humility seems to show up. Whereas in the Northwest, I'm like, yeah, you're just like not folding your heel out enough. Like I know this, I just did this problem like last week, you know?
Yeah. It is like,
so concrete.
Even just like moving it to the gym, it's like, I guess the difference between someone working a board climb that you're like, okay, I know these holds or have done this climb, versus climbing in the commercial part of the gym where you're like, I've never climbed at this gym, or, you know, haven't climbed on those holds. And yeah, I think it's nice to have a data point of like, oh, I've been on this climb and I'm familiar with it. But I guess in the grand scheme of things of helping someone like work through something, it's a pretty similar process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of like that guidance or like nudging or something is
Mm-hmm.
the whole job. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about board climbing because am I right? You're 5 foot plus 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So you're on the shorter
I'm
side of
short.
things, but you're a beast on a board.
Thanks.
Like you climb. I mean I can't on the 2016 moon board. Like you just make it look really effortless. And obviously being short in general is going to change the way that you interact with a lot of things. But I feel like board climbing is just so powerful a lot of the time. And so I don't know, I just am curious, like your methodology with it. And like, did you take to it quickly? You've been climbing a long time, obviously, but I'm curious, particularly with the board.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I started climbing on the 2016 moon board when it came out in
Okay.
2016. So that
Wow.
was probably, yeah, really my first interaction with the board. And I'm trying to remember, but I feel like I definitely felt really discouraged at first. Especially, it was when I was living in Colorado. And like, while there can be powerful movement and climbs on that granite style, it's definitely like you can be a very successful static climber out there. So
Hmm.
it was a little bit foreign for sure. Um, and I think I just I think for one it's just yeah the practice and getting familiar with the board and working on climbs with other people. But I think I'm one of my strengths is getting really high feet and being able to like really generate and pull through in those positions. And with the board, it's like your feet are either really low and you're jumping off of them or your feet are really high. And I feel like I was able to just take advantage of the when I can't use the low feet, I'm able to get into those higher foot positions and still make it work. Um, so
That kind of like perch and like pull yourself into the wall, that sort of
yeah,
movement.
yeah, or like dynamically being able to like get on top of a foot and yeah, pull through.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. I mean, it's interesting that I find really good skilled, I guess would be the right word. Really skilled shorter climbers tend to make the climb seem like all the moves are smaller than you think, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who's trying Penrose Step, which is like this V14 here,
Nice.
and so I've been hanging out at that boulder a lot, just supporting my buddy. And I was like watching Katie Lamb's video of it the other day, and if you stand at the boulder and then you watch Katie Lamb's video of it, you're like, these cannot be the same
Wow.
boulder because
Yeah.
she's not like a tall person, and she makes all the
Right.
moves look very casual and small. She's not like doing a huge jump move over and over, which is what I feel like it's going to look like when I do it, and I'm like a normal size
Yeah.
man. And I get the same thing when I watch you climb on the moonboard. I'm like, I know these moves are big, but she really is just so glued to the wall that they really don't look that big. So you kind of took to it. You're good at getting the high feet. Did you have to like? What was it like to become more proficient at it? Did you have to like grind out that style or learn any big lessons?
Um, I feel like when I really got into it, I feel like I kind of dabbled in it. Probably didn't go too crazy on it, but I think it was like 2019, 2020-ish. I had a friend who was like super psyched on the board, and I was psyched on climbing with her, and we just kind of like started just going through the problems. And that's probably more so when I gained that proficiency. But yeah, just through getting on the benchmarks and yeah, trying to get them done. I guess I'm trying to think. I don't know where my power was at really like before that, but I do think like my style I didn't feel like pigeonholed into any one style like at any point. I felt like able to be somewhat diverse in my climbing, and even with outdoor climbing I felt pretty or I tried to be like pretty well rounded with it. So I don't know if I was coming into like the board climb in like a really already like in a place where like I wouldn't be able to kind of learn it, if that makes sense. That was a little rambly.
Yeah, like you had done enough sort of board type powerful kind of climbing that it wasn't super unfamiliar to you by the time you really started climbing on it. That totally makes sense. Have you always strength trained too?
No, I started strength training in 2017 or 18.
Okay, so not long after.
Yeah. But yeah, I basically like my trajectory was, climbed in college, moved to Colorado, experienced just like a really big boost in performance, just from the accessibility of climbing, which I just didn't have when I was in school, and just availability of climbs in my style, and just like had a really good couple of seasons, and then I hit a plateau, and then that's when I started strength training. I was like, because I was pretty unorganized about it, which is totally fine. Like, you don't have to start structured training if you don't want to and you're still seeing progress. It's like fine. And I knew I would get to that point where I did need to start doing structured training, and I tried to kind of like extend that as much as possible. And then once I hit that point, I was like, okay, it's time.
Did it have like an immediate noticeable effect?
Not immediate. I would say it probably was like 6 to 9 months later that I was like, okay,
it's working.
I feel the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you put on muscle and got more powerful kind of?
I just felt stronger, which makes sense. The way that I started strength training was, just not how a normal person would do it, but it's because I, started my new career and became a personal trainer. And so I was like working out with the bros at the, who I worked with, like 4 days. I like was strength training like 3 or 4 days a week. So I definitely got really strong. I don't think I don't know if my body composition changed all that much. But definitely just like it was low hanging fruit. There were a lot of gains to be had. And I think I have the body type where, gaining strength isn't too difficult. Like I don't think I like needed to make sure I was eating more, or like, yeah, I was able to gain strength pretty quickly. Nice. Yeah. It
just worked for you. That's awesome.
It just worked. Yeah.
Yeah. And you probably don't strength train 4 days a week anymore, but you've obviously kept doing it a little bit.
Yeah. I, depending on where I'm at in the season, it's like once every week to 2 during in season, and then I try to do like twice a week during the off season.
Gotcha. You just stick to like kind of core compound SBD stuff?
Yeah, I just do 3x5s of bench and deadlift, and as long as those numbers stay about where they are, I'm happy with it.
Nice. Yeah, why mess with it if it's working for you?
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, I do feel like as far as strength training to supplement climbing goes, it's like once you hit that point where you'll go through it where you're gaining strength, and then you'll hit a plateau of sorts, and it's just kind of like fine to just keep it there. There's no need to try to really get those numbers up.
Right. Unless you want to do that like for itself, unless you're like, it would just be cool to bench however much, And I've had clients who get psyched on that stuff in the off season and we'll like work on that. But yeah, it definitely doesn't like do anything earth shattering for your climbing.
Yeah.
Actually, I think for myself, when I really push hard, because like deadlifting is fun, that's like one where I can actually like, I don't want to say they're big numbers because they're definitely
move some weight.
But for myself, it's like, I have like goals in that lift, and like maybe in some other, like I'm never going to have a good bench press, it's just like never going to happen. But every time I like push it on the deadlift, it's just so tiring that my climbing suffers, and it's not going to matter to my climbing to add 20 or 50 pounds to my deadlift. It's just not a big deal. So it has to be just for the love of that other thing by itself.
Yeah. And like when I was strength training like 4 days a week at work, when I was a personal trainer, like my numbers were certainly higher than they are now. And I cannot lift what I was lifting back then, but it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I have my numbers where I'm like, all right, this is like about where I should be when I'm in season, and like they'll definitely drop a little bit, and I'll need to get them back up during the off season. But yeah, there's like an acceptable range in for me where I'm like, this is fine.
That's probably like one of the questions that I get asked the most when I post the little AMA box on Instagram, or in even just like when I talk to people in consults and stuff, is like how much, quote, should they be able to like bench or deadlift or squat, or like is there a point where they should stop trying to get better at those lifts? It sounds like you kind of came on numbers that work for you based on just your own history, and they're not based on anything external.
Yeah, no, not based on anything external at all. And it's pretty much just like when I hit that RPE and I'm like, RPE 8 is this weight, and that's where it is. Yeah,
that'll do for today. Yeah. It's like if there were no labels on the plates, you probably would wind up lifting like around a similar amount of weight to that amount that you're trying to hit for the maintenance. And we just want to know what the number is because it's really convenient, but like your body doesn't really care that much. It just knows how hard it feels and how heavy it is, right?
Yep. And just getting that stimulus in is all that matters.
Yeah. How many of your clients strength train too?
Almost all of them. There's a couple who it's really just not necessary, just with where they are with the where we need to put energy and time. They're like so far above their climbing level with their strength where it's like, okay, this is like not the best use of your time and energy. But most of them do. I'm like looking at my client list over here. Yep.
Oh, you have a physical client list on the wall?
I have I have like a crazy whiteboard set up. It's like the only way that I can like make it make sense in my brain. I need to like physically like check like
keeping up on everybody's like when their training expires and all that stuff.
Yeah, just like the dates, making sure I have their programming in, when their last call was. Yeah.
Cool. That's great. I have a spreadsheet for all the same stuff.
Oh, nice. Good job.
Yeah. It's essential for sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think that's like something that made me want to have you on the podcast, is just based on the content that you post. I feel like we're in a very similar realm in terms of like, if I see a new Juliet post, I don't know if it could be about like finger strength, or it could be about like body image, or it could be about like mindset. Like it could be anywhere really. And I find that cool. It's like the same sort of way that I approach it in terms of like both my own climbing before I was a coach, but also definitely with my clients. Like I'm ready to try to attack the problem at wherever the base is, whatever the like root is of the problem. I think that's cool. That sort of like holistic approach to like, what is the thing that's holding this person back? And so I think I related to that a little bit. And you also had a really cool like Venn diagram on your Instagram that it's got like strength, technique, and mindset, I think, are the three things. And then it has overlaps and all that. How did you come up with that? I thought that was a really interesting idea.
Oh, really? Yeah, I feel like when I made it, I was like, surely someone's made this before. Unless it's probably not groundbreaking. But yeah, I mean, just knowing that climbing is so involved in all three of those areas, and you need them to all work together to reach your goals. But yeah, it's like interesting just the way that those things interact. And I was just kind of thinking like, oh, if like the deficit is here, in strength, then these other parts of their climbing could suffer, or like, I think it is just interesting how all three of those things really have to work together. Yeah.
Let me describe it for people. I pulled it up. Because obviously, like, this is what I find so interesting is like, there's tons of coaches out there, but climbing is it's so new. We're all thinking about these things, and I've definitely made, diagrams to try to explain the same concept, or like I have my own ways of thinking about it, but I definitely haven't seen this idea anywhere else. So it's like it's a 3-piece Venn diagram, like where the bubbles overlap, and you have strength, technique, and mindset are the bubbles, and then where strength and technique overlap is movement skill, where strength and mindset overlap is confidence, which I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I always think of confidence as being like a feedback loop, and it can be a negative feedback loop or a positive feedback loop, but it's definitely between your strength and your mental confidence,
Mm-hmm.
And then mindset and technique, those meet for execution. And then in the middle where all three meet is like you doing the thing or achieving whatever the goal is that you're trying to achieve. And I thought that, I don't know, I just think that's it's very lucid. It's cool because it demonstrates that like if you have a deficit in one of those areas, if that bubble was smaller, then the overlap would be smaller too, right? So like if you have less technique, for instance, like the overlap between technique and mindset where you should have really good execution skills is going to be smaller. And so if you have an execution problem, like you kind of know like where to look. I think it's a useful way to think about it. It's cool.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
Do you like, I have this really laborious intake form that I have my clients do,
nice.
So I can try to learn everything about their entire life story. Do you kind of do the same thing so you can figure out where their issues are?
Yeah, and it is one of those things too where you also just have to get your eyes on their climbing too, because sometimes what people perceive as their deficit or what they need to work on is actually like fine. Mm-hmm. And it's actually something else. So it's definitely helpful that's when it's helpful to just get someone else's eyes on what's going on. But some people are really aware of what's going on. And when I coach people, my kind of the system I've developed, and it's actually more recent in the last like 6 months to a year, where I'm like, all right, let's just like figure out one focus for each, the physical, technical, mental, and tactical. And like, sometimes, some of those don't need to be addressed, but it's just like, let's think about what's going to be helpful in each of those categories. That's
cool. So you have like an overt goal in each of those areas, like we're trying to accomplish something in these areas?
Just like a focus.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Yeah. Here, let me pull it up.
I really like on the spot.
Yeah, I really was just trying to get organized a little bit better this year, because things got a little crazy, which is good. I'm not mad about it, but yeah, I just like want to make sure that everyone we're doing what we need to for each person. Okay, let's see. So, for example, this client, physically, we want to work on lower body strength, addressing some hip strength and posterior chain strength with just squat and hinge movements. Technically, creating stable positions with only one foot on, because there's a tendency to have 2 feet on at all time, and it's probably to do with feeling somewhat insecure and being able to trust that hip strength, which ties into the physical part of it. Mentally, handling pressure when trying to send, and then tactically making sure to take those pauses between attempts to assess what to try next.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so some kind of general stuff, but also some very specific, like in the session, things that we're working on trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like I usually just have kind of like, we'll set process or outcome goals for blocks, but I usually just have one thing that I'm working on with the person. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I try to kill my darlings a little bit in terms of, I don't know if I trust myself to like keep 4 things on track at the same time, if that makes sense. But
no, that's fair.
It does. Yeah. It does make a lot of sense as a strategy, because there's always stuff that needs to be worked on in all those different areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like just with the clients I work with, it's often they're weekend warriors, or like they're splitting their time between the gym and outdoors. And so like what we're focusing on when they're going outside and trying to send their project is going to be different than like what we're doing in the gym. So yeah, a lot of the kind of separation comes from that too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure you get client buy-in from that too. Like, it's just easier for somebody to show up for themselves and do a bunch of deadlifting and Bulgarian split squats or like whatever, you know, if they know that like building lower body strength and like hip stability is something that's really key in the plan, then it kind of helps to be like, this is what they said I need to work on, you know, instead of you just giving them the training plan and they're like, did they copy paste this? Like, I don't know if this is for me. You know what I mean?
Totally.
You probably I'm sure you coach sport and boulderers as well. Yeah. Cool. How I'm asking you a lot of like professional curiosity questions.
Oh yeah. No, it's great. It's nice to, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it can be lonely out here being a solopreneur, so I enjoy enjoying it.
I'm just curious how different your plans are between sport climbing and bouldering in terms of like obviously the focus areas are different, but in terms of like the volume of training or like how much strength training you're willing to give sport climbers and stuff like that.
Yeah. It definitely just really depends on the individual. Like right now, one of my one-on-ones who is focused on sport climbing is also the one who like is really strong already. So it's, and yeah, for him, we're working on, it's a lot of mental stuff with the sport climbing, I think, which, not to say that, one is more taxing than the other, but kind of what we were talking about before is just like, it gets hard with sport climbing.
Is working on that mostly conversational?
It is, yeah. And just, we're like doing, of course, endurance workouts and this and that, but also just reflecting on like, okay, when you fell there, was it like you went all out and fell because you couldn't grab another hold, or was it like you started to have some wavering in confidence of being able to finish the climb, so you just took, kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of it's just conversational and talking through it.
Yeah, stopping thoughts showing up. Yeah, I was going to ask about this when we were talking about board climbing a little bit, but actually maybe we should just jump in, because I have a few questions that are related to you being short, and I kind of touched on it with the board climbing thing, but some of the stuff, so like part of this I got from talking to my wife. She's 5'4", but here in the Northwest, like being anything below maybe average size can be a huge detriment here, because there's just a lot of like good holds far apart. It's just very common here. So related to the did you fall because you were actually falling thing, do you find that as a shorter climber, it's important for you to be able to like try really hard on command a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that, I guess this probably happens more to me in the gym, but there's definitely like, and it could depend what kind of mood I'm in, and sometimes I go through phases, but there's definitely times where I just like don't go for things because I'm like, oh, I'm just too short for that, even though there's no actual evidence of that. But it can be just a feedback loop of just like, oh, I can't do this. I'm too short, or like, and also I think part of it too can come from, I climb alone a lot when I go to the gym, just because I vlog and I don't like to do that in front of people. And also, yeah, just going during off times when it's quieter. But it is funny, like when I do get to climb with other women my height and they like do things, I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I just try?
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. The move is fine. I don't know why I'd convinced myself of this, but I do think there is, I mean, I guess anyone can have different narratives like that, but I think it's just like a pretty easy out being a short climber. It's just like, oh, I'm too short. It's just right there because I am short. Like, it's a fact.
The holds really are further away. Like, it's not, you're not being delusional or anything. I think what I was curious about is like, I don't want to shit on tall climbers, and I'm 5'10 +4, so I'm basically like the most annoying body type imaginable. Like things are just closer for me. But like I do find a lot of taller climbers, like there are a lot of powerful tall climbers, but there's also a lot of tall climbers who can just kind of stand and own the position and just like sort of grab the hold without having to create a lot of that like power from the hip and like really having to get super close to the wall. And I sort of think that's where a lot of the like tall climber hate comes from. It's not just that they're reaching the hold, but it's like when they reach the hold, it just doesn't seem like they're really trying that hard. You know what? It's just like they just sort of grab it. And I feel like when I watch smaller climbers be really powerful on things where the holds are further apart, it really seems like there's a lot of like try hard, like psychological try hard involved in like being able to create that power and not stress about risk or stress about like what'll happen if I don't grab it or stress about skin or anything like that. That's what I was kind of trying to drive at.
Yeah. I don't know. That's like a good question. I haven't thought about it so much from that mindset. Whether it's because I'm just used to it and maybe just don't even think about it. But it is, I don't know. It's just one of those things where maybe it's not worth, at least like the comparison to tall people. It's like, it's such an energy suck.
Yeah.
So I still do it, but like I try my best to not get too stuck in it. Because of course it's annoying when someone just like reaches something, but it's also like not going to do anything for me to be upset about it.
Have you had to work on your like ability to try hard? Is that something you've put energy into?
Yeah, I think when I really realized it is when I watch someone who like does really try hard and just like see it in action, and I'm like, I don't try that hard. I can do better. And so I think for one, yeah, it's definitely helpful to climb with people who do try that hard, and it's just like a reminder, but it's definitely something I'm still working on, to be honest.
Gotcha. Do you find that you've had to you said that you still do wind up kind of falling into that trap of comparison. Is that something that you've sort of confronted, or is it just comes up sometimes when you're trying certain projects and you sort of have to deal with it and move past it?
A little bit of both. There's definitely, I would say it can come in waves. There will definitely be waves where I'm kind of doing that more and care about it more and like struggle with it more. And I think just through the different iterations of me going through that wave, I've learned how to manage it better. And just working through it and I think just being able to move myself through it a little bit quicker. I don't think it's fair expectation to put on myself to like never do it, especially because I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day. Like it's comparison is like we're not climbing in a vacuum. It's like a pretty natural thing to do and to have happen. And so not guilting myself if it does come up, but yeah, just trying to move through it a little quicker and get back to the task at hand.
Yeah. Stay kind of like process oriented and like work on whatever it is you actually need to do to achieve something in your climbing, and not just stressing about the meta level stuff that's going on in your brain and on social media and stuff. I feel like social media is responsible for a lot of this.
Yeah, I think there is, I guess, fear of being judged or whatever. Like, I don't know. I've talked about height a few times, or probably more than a few times on my Instagram, and you definitely get pushback over things. And I had a whole conversation with Lauren from Good Spray and Caitlin on their podcast. And we went into the conversation about like people getting really upset when like short people take like the higher of a slash grade or just things like that.
I actually have a note on here that says personal grades ?
Oh my gosh.
Because
yeah.
like I'll happily take the higher of a slash grade if something just feels hard to me. And I don't have a clear guiding principle for like when we as climbers should do that or not do it. And I think there's sort of this instinct to be like very judgmental when people do it. Like if I go climb something and it's 80 degrees and it feels really hard, but I do it and I take the higher grade for it, like, first of all, I'm just moving on in my life and going to the next thing. Like, I'm probably not going to go back to it and like on a cooler day and like see if it was really hard or not. I'm just moving on, you know? And if I feel like I gotta, whatever, you know, it's V8/9 and I take V9. If I feel like I got a V9 experience out of it because conditions were bad, like, why does that matter to anybody else? That's the experience I felt like it had, or it felt like I had, you know? It's like, it's very weird how much pressure we put on that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's definitely just culturally we applaud people for downgrading things and, yeah, judge them for upgrading things for whatever reason. I think just generally our culture is very performance driven and grade based and all of that. Social media certainly doesn't help, but I also think like even before, like, I feel like Instagram really popped off, we always had 8A and people like soft going and wanting to get on the sidebar and yeah.
It's still the worst. Like every time I like almost never go to 8A anymore, but every time I'm like, you know, there's a few people who climb around here who do log everything on 8A. And if I'm like, oh, maybe there's like a snippet of information on there. If I go look up this boulder that I'm thinking about trying that nobody's done, but I think maybe that guy's done it who's on 8A or whatever. And I'll go on there and I'll just like see some of their comments and I'll just be like, God, it's so toxic. Like
it's
every
so
time.
Bad. It's so bad. Yeah.
Everything on there is just about how easy everything is and how everybody else should be so ashamed that they put any effort into it. It's just like, oh my God, is this really the face that we're really presenting to the world?
Yeah, I've had some really bizarre experiences with that kind of stuff. Like there was a climb at Rocktown that it gets a slash grade. It's 8/9, and I posted it on Instagram and had it as V9, and had multiple comments being like, good job, but it's V8. And I was like, well, if you look at the consensus on 8A, like more people take 9 than they take 8. So, and then also, this like annoyed me so much, but one of the people who like called me out and said it was V8, he was on 8A, like he had logged it on 8A as V9. And I was like,
classic.
What? You took 9. Why can't I take 9?
Yeah. That's
so
insane.
Weird.
It reminds me of like, I don't know. It reminds me of like sometimes on Instagram. I don't know why, but I have this bizarre obsession with like, I don't know what you would even call it, like odd lifts, I guess, on Instagram. You know, just like the people who are doing like things in the weight room, but they're not traditional lifts. They're just doing like bizarre human feats of strength type stuff. I just find that stuff so fascinating. And if you follow these people, you know that they're like absolute freaks, right? The things that they can do are just not normal things. But every once in a while, if you look in the comments, you'll see somebody in there who's like, those aren't 45-pound plates. They're like 10-pound plates, but they look like they're the size of 45-pound plates. And it's just like, bro, like shut the fuck up. Yeah. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, look how strong this dude. That's exactly the same energy to me as when people are like, oh, actually, this one's V7. It's just like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, let the person climbing in the video decide for themselves how hard it is.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also like, my opinion on grades and whether you take the high grade or like it all works out in the wash.
Yeah.
It all like once you do enough climbs, it just like it doesn't matter. Right.
You're gonna get spanked for some of them, and a lot of the ones that you really work your ass off for that really humble you. At least for me, like when I've gotten really humbled, I've respected that process and been like, even though this took me. You know, I don't believe in like time math for grades necessarily, but like if I do a V10 and it takes me 8 days or something, like that would be a really long time. And like sometimes I'll do one of those and I'll be like, you know what? Like I genuinely think this is V11 and I'm going to upgrade it. You know, it's like fairly rare, but like I'll do that. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they take me 8 days and I get to the end of that process and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this thing's V10 and like I got spanked. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And like I just don't know how I'm going to feel about it until I get to the end of the process. But to think that when I post a video of it, somebody else is going to have that same, like they're going to go through all that same process that I went through being at the boulder for all that, that's like 40 hours or something like that I spend at that boulder thinking about it. Like, yeah, it's just, they just don't have the same. And even if they have done the boulder, even if they spent their 8 days on the boulder, they had a different experience than me. So it would just be nonsense to think that their opinion counted for me anyway. It counts for them. I won't take anything away from them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's no need to say anything, but alas, it happens.
Yeah, we can't take them to the bank anyway. I wish we could. I wish every time you sent something, it was like you got a paycheck, but
it
doesn't work that way for most of us.
Nope.
Do you find that being short affects your motivation to do different things? Like, are you interested in, getting like first female or first short ascents or like coming up with new beta, stuff like that?
Yeah, I guess I'm not like super driven by like FFAs or I do like a good shorty challenge for sure, where it's just like it's cool if something can be figured out. But I think just by nature, with my height and also just being in the Southeast, and it's I have had to just kind of find my own beta for most things. But it can definitely ebb and flow. There's some times where I'm just like, I don't feel like doing this, like needing to kind of find my way through a climb and come up with all this crazy beta and stuff. And sometimes it is nice when something just fits you and you don't have to like mess around with it. Which, yeah, doesn't happen as often. But I was actually like talking to a friend about this yesterday with the sport climbing around here. And like I said, it's really bouldery and it's sandstone. And so there's just not a lot of options. And, a lot of the sport climbs just revolve around a really hard boulder, and sometimes it's just really not accessible at my height, versus just taking a trip up to the red. It's like there's a lot more possibilities for me up there because I won't have to figure out some crazy beta, or like it's a little more straightforward and just accessible height wise.
Gotcha.
So sometimes I get fatigued and I'm like, let's just go elsewhere.
Yeah, break it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It seems like this is a side thing, but it seems like people who live in Chattanooga don't go on as many trips as people who live in some other places. Am I off there?
I think a lot of people will take trips in the summer for sure.
In the summer.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it depends. I feel like it, at least like from my own experience, it is really easy to just kind of get like sucked in here and like not want to leave. But every time I do leave or like, travel or go on a vacation, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like nice to travel. But I think
change it up.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to enjoy where you live. And it's nice to have the feeling of being like, oh, like I'm excited to go home. But yeah, I guess I'm trying to think. I feel like people travel, but I guess I don't have a comparison for it versus the West.
Yeah, I feel like I just have this very ignorant West Coast sort of thinking where like everyone goes south in the winter, basically. I mean, a lot of people go to Chattanooga, right? And it's like, obviously you guys aren't going anywhere when it's good there. So it makes sense that summer would be the time. But
yeah, I
find that like traveling to climb during summer, I'm very cynical about it these days. Like I love Squamish and being in Squamish, but it's more like a summer camp than really a climbing trip because it's just still hot, you know? And like same with, it's like you were saying about going to Colorado, like it's not actually like temps really when you're there. Maybe better than Chattanooga.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people go to Lander. A lot of people go to Squamish still. Yeah, I think.
Tensely, probably.
Yeah, Colorado. But I think maybe it even is less so of a like, let's go perform and more of a like, I'm tired of how hot it is here. Let's take a trip and get out and hopefully come back with a little more stoke. Because, yeah, I mean, for me, stopping climbing in May to October, and that's like as extended as it gets for me. But if you're a boulderer and you have to wait till mid-November to really start getting outside, it's like, it's too long to be stuck in the gym and stay motivated to like train for next season.
Yeah. Do you guys have a big sport climbing gym there?
No,
just bouldering gyms.
Yeah. There are 2 gyms that have some sport climbing, but they're like, I want to say like 30-foot walls. Like they're short. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I would love a sport climbing gym here.
The really modern sport climbing gyms that are like legit, the size of actual crags outside are pretty wild. It's like, it's a different beast for sure. It's kind of overwhelming, in a good way. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask, like, how much of your season do you feel like you spend digging into single projects, be that bouldering or sport climbing? Do you sort of like build up your volume and then like work on a mega project for like most of the season, or what's your strategy?
Yeah, I think it can kind of vary from year to year. I do feel like I enjoy projecting, and it's nice to have something to work on. I feel like I haven't really had a long-term sport project yet. I think it's in part because of where I am in the learning curve of sport climbing, and just like my current sport climbing grade, I feel like does not correlate to like my max bouldering grade. But I also like, I don't know, I guess I tend to take the approach, and for better or for worse, where like I don't just like kind of like jump to the goal grade. I like to like work my way up, which has gotten me in trouble before, where like I really should have been trying harder things and I was just too scared of getting on them. So in some ways it would probably be beneficial for me to just like jump up to the goal grade. But yeah, as far as the sport climbing goes, I do tend to kind of start with building volume and just getting some mileage and trying to get that fitness, and then focusing in on 1 to 2 climbs
for the season. You kind of like hit them in fall and learn them a little bit, and then go boulder, and then like come back to your sport project in the spring. Is that kind of your?
Yeah, this fall was a little bit of a wash for me. Yeah, I was dealing with like a bunch of finger tweaks, which was pretty annoying. But that is kind of like what's happened this year, is like I did kind of go scope a project in the fall, and now I've started going back to it, and it feels a lot better, which is nice.
Sweet.
And then for bouldering, I'm trying to think of like what I did the last few seasons, and I think I actually have not done the best job of like actually like digging into a real project. I think, yeah, first season was like everything's new, it's a playground. I did all the kind of like low-hanging fruit, the things that really suited me, and then I just haven't found a project that I am like psyched to go fall on when it comes to bouldering, because I think it's in part just like I don't feel like I've found something that is the right difficulty that fits me well. I think everything, the Southeast tends to be really good, or just tons of volume in like the V4 to 8 range. And then once you start getting into like the higher double-digit grades, it just the options available really peter out. And then the options available are also just like kind of morpho.
Yeah.
And so I just, there is something I could work on, but it's like 2 hours away, and I would just have to really be like, all right, this is like, I'm committing to this, and I just haven't gone to a place where I want to do that. Not
ready for it. Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like I've said this before on a podcast somewhere, but I feel like people who are climbing, you know, in the maybe, I guess, for the type of people who are probably listening to climbing podcasts, you know, in the V5 to 8 range or something is probably like pretty standard. I don't know. But like a lot of people who I talk to who are sort of in that realm, like they underestimate like just how logistically complicated it is when you start getting closer to your genetic potential. Like, first of all, people who are climbing V15 and 16, like, I think it sucks to have to fly around the world to have a project. That sounds terrible. Like, even as it is, my sort of like working grade where I feel like I make the best progress here in I live like just outside of Leavenworth, which is a really big crag, but I've been climbing there for so long that there's not that many things in that like 3 to 10 day range project. There's like some, but it's, you know, they're maybe up a hill and like nobody's climbed on them in a couple seasons, or like they broke a few years ago and we're not sure if it goes, kind of stuff. And like there are still good things around to do for sure. But like there's way more on the west side of the mountains, which is like a 2-hour drive. And it's just like, you know, I moved to this Mecca. I love living here. I love climbing here. But it's kind of crazy if I wanted to like maximize my progression, just how much more I would need to be driving. And I think people overlook that because they just see, you know, like whatever pro going to whatever country every, you know, I don't know, 4 times a year these people go on trips or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, actually that's kind of a pain in the ass. I think it's not that fun.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I've been kind of thinking. I was thinking about this last night. I was like, I feel like I got to a similar place when I was in Colorado of feeling a similar way, but now where I am now, I'm like, oh no, there's a lot there that like I think too, just like I've gotten. I don't know if I've gotten that much stronger since I've moved back to the Southeast, but I've definitely become a better climber. And so I am curious, like, what it would look like going back to the stuff that was, like, really stumping me in Colorado. But, again, requires traveling and getting out there. And, I'm really kind of, there's slim pickings as far as the boulders go around here, which is a large part of why I've switched to sport climbing. Also, it's just like kind of fun to be kind of bad at something.
Yeah.
Like relatively like my sport, like I love watching good sport climbers climb. It's amazing. For sure. And I'm like, I want to get there and I'm not there, and it's exciting to like have progress or ways to progress.
The really, really good climbers at Smith that I climbed with, in terms of just having their shit together, so impressive. Like, and I'm not talking about like the semi-pros or like the people who had done everything, but just the people who were really like chugging through all the like 13 Bs and Cs at Smith, you know, like just to leave the ground super confident when they had only like worked out the moves a little bit, you know, and to be able to like engage with runouts really confidently when they're like new to the route. I found that stuff so impressive, and it's a million miles away from, you know, being able to do hard moves on a boulder. It's just such a different set of skills. And I agree with you. When I watch those people, I'm just like, wow, they have something really special and developed over a long time that's very, very practicable, but very different from what we think of as like good performance, especially if we're absorbed in the like bouldering social media sphere, which is just very movement sort of driven. And like, I know so many boulderers who have the willies with hard climbing. You know, they get nervous before hard climbs, and like, I feel like sport climbing is probably a really good way to address that. It's just not. I would love to see a graph of how popular they both are, because I feel like sport climbing is not as popular as bouldering, but maybe I'm just like skewed by social media and where I live, because there's not very much sport climbing.
No,
here.
I mean I would be curious about it. I do think like. I think too, like just the logistical part of sport climbing, can be more of a challenge. Also, just depending on where you live and all of that, but like it takes longer. Mm-hmm. Like it's really, at least here, it's super easy to do a half day bouldering. You just drive 20 minutes, hike 5 minutes, climb for a couple hours, go home, go work some more. Sport climbing, it's like, I actually had a pretty quick day out yesterday, and that was probably like 7 hours, which
Wow.
is not bad, but like it's not a half day. So yeah, just it takes more time. You have to have a partner. Like when I was bouldering here, it was just fun to find a low ball project that I could do fine with my 2 pads and just go out on my own and not have to like coordinate to find people to go out with. And then here in the Southeast, the crags are just not super concentrated, or like, it's not like the red where you can go to one wall for the first half of the day and then just like walk a little bit and you're at the other crag, and there's just like a huge diversity of grades available. It's like you have to find someone who like wants to do one of the 5 climbs at the wall that your project is on. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it too, just like the accessibility aspect of sport climbing versus bouldering and the popularity. I feel like bouldering is just like more accessible.
It is, and it's more, as far as like availability bias, I think it's just more social media like friendly, you know? It's just hard to
for
shoot.
Sure. I can't get
it's hard to
any
shoot sport
content
climbing. Nobody, and
so
like
hard.
when somebody sprays about a sport climb, it's usually a picture of them. Like, and they're like, I did this thing, you know. It's very rare. Like, we don't get the uncut footy. There's no beta, like beta video. Like, that's probably another really good reason to do it from like a progression standpoint, is like you have to kind of figure it out a lot more. You can have your belayer like shout up what they did if they've sent that route before, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, from a content creator standpoint, it's really annoying because I'm like, okay, I can get some really grainy, shitty footage of me on this sport route, but it's not going to do well on Instagram, and so now I'm just pulling like old, not that anyone really notices probably, but I'm just like reusing all my old bouldering videos. And it's hard to be like, this is what I'm doing right now, but it's not Instagram algorithm friendly.
Do you feel like your content creation strategy has like changed over the years that you've been a coach?
Yeah, for sure. And it does have a lot to do with just what's helpful for business. I think there was a period where it was really easy to just like post me sending something, and that was enough, and that was content. And it was easy. It was just like, oh cool, like clip it together real quick and that's fine. And the algorithm really rewarded it too, which I guess still holds true. But in the last like year plus ish, I've been swapping to just trying to like provide a little more value in my content. But it does take more time to create, come up with ideas and all of that. But I personally am happier with the like what I'm putting out.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I feel like I sort of kickstarted my coaching off of the fact that I had a lot of footage and I had a lot of like, you know, credibility, I guess, as being someone who could climb stuff. But I try to lean on that like less and less now, partly because there's a lot of people out there who are just posting footage now, and in some cases those people really know what they're talking about, but a lot of them are also just people who have not been climbing super long, but they have climbed stuff, and then they're, you know, in their, I feel like I'm like outing myself as someone who reads the comments too much, but like in their comments, like people will ask them training questions and they reveal themselves to be like very naive about training, and then I'm kind of like, well, yeah, I guess just posting, you know, videos of yourself climbing really doesn't establish as much credibility as maybe we would think it did. And maybe 5 years ago it did establish more credibility than it does now. The algorithm's definitely changed and climbing's gotten a lot more popular, and the way that Instagram specifically is like integrated with bouldering is just crazy compared to 5 years ago. Like it's a full-blown economy, like is the word, which is kind of wild. So I agree. I think it's like, let's provide some real value, and not just
Yeah.
post our sendage.
I think it was too, like, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to it. For one, like, I think when I was just relying on send videos as my content, it put pressure on me to send. And it's just like, that's not fun. Like, I'm not a professional climber. Like, I don't need to have my performance like valued in that way. So that for one, that was really nice. But also I think like in a good way, the I guess just number of people posting footage itself, but also just other coaches, how many coaches are kind of coming up now. It challenged me to be like, okay, I can do better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. It's on the note of like it pressuring you to feel like you need to send things. Like I already put so much pressure on myself to send things that I'm not sure it was really making me feel more pressure, but it would definitely do things like if I was out trying something and it was like getting dark and I knew I could do it, but like I didn't have lights, but I was like, it's light enough for me to do it, and I just like won't worry about filming it. But then I would like send it, and then I would be like annoyed at myself that I hadn't filmed it, because I would want to post it because of some, just some urge really. And I think I could do a lot of self-judging about what that urge is, but I've kind of been trying to like reconnect to my roots a little bit in terms of like being okay with climbing on stuff without feeling like it needs like have an angle and,
Hey, you should go sport climbing. It makes
totally.
That's I've gone through that process, like, that relationship between climbing and sending and content, because I'm just like, there's no reason for me to film this. And it's nice. It's like so liberating.
Yeah.
I'm like, no one knows what I'm doing in my own. I mean, it's still beneficial, of course, to like share your own process and like what you're going through. But like right now, like the fact that I'm trying this sport climb and getting close to sending, I feel no pressure because no one knows.
No one knows
except for my partners, like my climbing partners. That I'm.
Well, now everybody's going to know. I'm going to blow it up on the podcast. Gonna know,
but hopefully by the time it's posted, I've done it. Or,
nice.
But no one even knows what I'm trying, so it's like it's great.
It's the Dawn Wall.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's really. I think that one of the tensions for me is like, yes, I don't want to let my climbing be corrupted by the fact that I'm trying to like capture things in order to use them as content. But the tension comes from like, I do need content, and like you can make just grid posts that are text, and people do get a lot of value out of that. But I do want to show myself climbing too. It's just like I totally get that. Like it's you want to show that you're still like climbing. Yeah.
You're like, I'm still out here doing it. Like I don't know. I think that's maybe one of the fears I have of like, I haven't been posting any recent things of me climbing, and it's because
they're going to think you just stopped.
That I don't climb anymore. I'm like, I still do. I still like and I think that's one of the things about coaching that I love, is that it's like, I'm going through these same exact processes as my clients, and it's like fun to kind of like be able to relate to them in that way. And I guess, part of the fear is like, what if people don't think I'm rock climbing anymore? But,
it gets in my head that like, it's cool that you're not posting your sport climbing project. And it sounds like you're just not posting it because it's not super convenient to like film or anything.
It's not convenient. It's not aesthetic. No one's going to know what's going on like in the video. Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool, and I'm definitely curious to like hear more about it when you do it and stuff. But I've been posting a lot about I guess there's been a few now that I've tried V13s where I've like posted a lot about that problem, and the one that I was posting about all fall, and then I posted about it a little bit this spring. Every time I would post about it, I'd be like, are people like fucking sick of seeing this yet? And maybe they are, and they didn't tell me, but I was surprised when I like asked for questions for the podcast for my March AMA for the podcast, I got like several people asking me like how it's going on the thing and like how's it going on the and I was like, oh, actually, like maybe people do care about this process a little bit, you know what I mean? Which is kind of, I don't know, it's like, it's kind of cool because
I think it's nice too to like see other people going through the process, like regular people, you know, non-professional climbers. It's just like, it's relatable, and that is cool that like people are invested in your climbing, and which is nice because as coaches we're really invested in our clients climbing and want them to do well. So it's nice when we also get that. Yeah,
it feels like, at least with maybe you have this too, with my like one-on-one clients, I feel like we're a little bit of a team. And like when somebody gets a big win, I feel like the other people, because we have like a, you know, a chat or whatever, like a group chat, and like it feels a little bit like everybody wins when somebody's doing really well, which is like a cool side bonus that I didn't expect when I started coaching. It's like a neat little community, you know.
Yeah, that is cool. That's I like that you have a group chat with your one-on-ones.
Yeah, I kind of just find that like, and that's actually the same reason I started the podcast. If somebody asks me a good question and I have something to say about it, like I would rather just say it to everybody, you know? It's just more efficient. And in some way, I think, you know, privacy or like anonymity is nice too. So obviously I talk to everybody individually as well, but there's just so many things I want to share with more people, you know. That's why I have the podcast now, so I can bring people on and have them talk about their own climbing. So
it's the cool thing about the climbing community, for sure.
Yeah. Is there anything that you feel like we haven't gotten into that you want to talk about?
I'm kind of curious, like, well, for one, apologies in advance. I've taken a step back from Instagram, so I'm not really seeing everyone else's content, which I guess good and bad, but I was really I got this app this is a tangent, but I got this app where it like makes me take a breath before I open Instagram, and like you can set how many times per day you can open it, and it just makes you like kind of pause and whatever, and it's enough of a pain in the ass and barrier that like I just don't even get on, which is great for me personally. But anyway, yeah, I miss a lot of content from other coaches, but I really liked your value capture post, and like I think that'd be fun to kind of talk about, because I was going through a similar kind of thinking about a similar thing based off of another podcast I listened to. It's On Purpose by Jay Shetty. It's like a self-helpy type, but he had this guest whose whole thing is about dopamine, and specifically like how social media affects the dopamine. But I was just like interested in how it applies to climbing, and I think it's a similar kind of train of thought as your value capture thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's literally what we were just talking about, of like that story I was saying where I was like, I know I can do the boulder and it's dusk, you know, and I'm more worried about the capturing of the experience than I'm worried about the having of the experience. Like that's how I knew that something was like kind of wrong with my way that I was engaging with climbing. But there is a tension there, because I do care about capturing it and I do care about creating content. So it's not like it's fully just corrupted. I just think I need to make for myself, I need to make like a clear distinction of like, this is the main goal. This is what I want to get out of my climbing, you know, and then these other things are tangential to that. And I think now, if you ask me to like pick percentages of like how much I am a climber versus how much I am a climbing coach, like the climbing coach part has been growing and growing, which was the goal. Like I got into it because I wanted to stay connected to the community. Basically, I used to climb 6 days a week, and I was just fucking obsessed with climbing. Is all I thought about and did. And as I could climb less and less and less, I was like, well, I still want to be engaged with it and be doing it, because it's just the coolest thing on earth in my mind. And so that's why I got into coaching. So it's not surprising that that's growing, you know, but then it's like, is capturing the experience, you know, or these other things that are tangential to the actual climbing, are those aligned with even the values of being a climbing coach, much less being aligned with being a climber. Like, and I'm not 100% sure. I think it's just really easy to get corrupted or to have your values captured by that stuff that's sort of adjacent to the experience. And I mean, you don't have to spend much time on Instagram at all to see tons of people who, I don't want to be judgmental of those people, but I think that they're posting a lot of stuff without really thinking about why they're posting it or why they're excited about what they did or whatever. And I got some comments when I posted that stuff to the effect of like people sort of defending I don't want to call them spray posts, even though I think the people who were defending them were calling them spray posts, but you know what I mean? They're sort of defending the green check mark emoji. And like, I get that too. I think that it's,
oh my gosh, that's so funny. The green check mark emoji. Yeah.
The green check mark emoji really is, it is representative of value capture in my mind. It's like, what are we out here trying to do? Are we engaging with nature and challenging ourselves and like all that stuff? Or are we out here just trying to like get on top of it and get the footy so we can like run home and put it on Instagram as soon as possible? And that's a very cartoonish distinction to make, but that really is the value capture question, is like, when you go into the session, you should really know what it is that you're trying to walk away with. It just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. He was the interviewee. He was talking kind of about this, like, dopamine driven behavior versus the oxytocin driven behavior. The dopamine driven behavior is like pleasure, seeking pleasure, and it's like just how accessible that brain chemical is now versus how it was thousands of years ago or whatever. I forget what he called it. It was like the evolutionary something where like previously you'd get like dopamine rushes like twice a day, and it was when you spent hours trying to light a fire and then the fire lit and then you like got the dopamine. And now it's like super accessible because you just open your phone and start scrolling on Instagram and it's just like immediate dopamine hits. Versus the oxytocin, he was saying it's like driven more so by wanting to connect with people and like help other people, and it's more like relationship based. And I think there's like definitely the same thing can be driven by these different things. Like posting on Instagram can be dopamine driven in that you want the likes, you want the validation, or it still can be oxytocin driven, where it's like, oh, like I want to post this video because I figured out this cool beta and I think it would help other people access this climb and be able to do it, or like I want to share this with my community. The same thing can be driven by different things, but I think you're totally right with just taking that step back and figuring out what it is you want out of the experience and like what's driving it, and if that does align with what you're trying to get out of climbing and what you value with it.
Yeah, I think that's spot on for sure. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I
was just gonna say the fire lighting thing was super interesting. I've never heard that before, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it was like, you had to like work really hard to get your dopamine, and but I was just kind of curious if you've experienced with your clients, like people having trouble sticking to projects, or like, because that was kind of like my train of thought, especially when I heard that of just like the quick ticks, the like just kind of like swiping through on the board climbs, doing what you can do quickly, not picking a project, that kind of thing. And I do think like that is something worth thinking about. And one of the quotes he said from, I think it's actually like one of the intro to the podcast, is he was saying like, do you want like pleasure or do you want happiness? Which was interesting. And I think like there are certain things in climbing culture where like we are chasing the dopamine, the pleasure hit, but without like actually making strides towards the longer term things that are going to bring us ultimately like satisfaction in a lifelong sport. Yeah.
In like Stoicism, in the philosophy of Stoicism, they have this idea of like voluntary hardship. And so like this is a really dumb example. Like I got into Stoicism a while ago, and so I just make myself do some of these things because I feel like they're really effective. So like one thing I do is our trash and recycling is outside, or on the other side of the garage, and there's it's on gravel, and it's not like soft river rock gravel. It's just like fucking sharp. Like, and when I take the trash out, I just don't ever put shoes on. I just always walk out there barefoot, and it hurts. It fucking hurts every time. But I've just gotten in the habit of doing that thing because of the whole idea in Stoicism of voluntary hardship. It's like if you do a little bit of that stuff, you know, every day, it's just a little bit easier when, you know, something hurts or something goes wrong. It's like a little bit easier to endure it because you're sort of practicing that. Mm-hmm. And so it's not every bad thing that happens is like a sudden bad thing where you're like, oh no, this bad thing happened. But some of it is like you're doing it on purpose and sort of like hardening yourself to it. And I think that there's a lot of value there, but it's really hard to apply that sort of thinking to your projecting days or like your training sessions where, you know, life is, you know, yeah, like we can get really good dopamine hits on Instagram. We've got that down better than ever, but like modern life is fucking stressful. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to like have these really, you know, have a tough work day and have like a hard commute. And then like, you know, maybe they're like trying to keep family on track and make everybody food or whatever. And then like you get your little training session, and now we're on this podcast telling you like also your training session needs to be like fucking brutal, you know.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be trying to get like like don't be out there trying to just get a quick tick. Like it really needs to be like, you know, difficult or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it's really hard to meet people where they're at with that, because like I want people to progress and to feel good in their climbing, and that does mean that the sessions need to be really focused and targeted and sometimes brutal for sure. Mm-hmm. Like I have a client who he's maybe bouldered outside like a handful of seasons, and he had a really good season last spring and then got injured last summer, so last fall wasn't as good. But he's coming into this spring and he's like he's nervous about trying harder projects because he's like never tried anything more than 2 days, and all the ones that were 2 days were like he came back to them and did them in like a try or two after the previous session. And I'm like, you're so new to this process of trying hard stuff that you don't even know what you're nervous about. Mm-hmm. Like you almost need to engage with the process with the idea of I'm going to go to this boulder for 10 days with no expectation of doing it, and just make that the goal and don't even worry about the contents of the session. Mm-hmm. And he's so strong, he's going to send it before he gets to 10 days anyways. But like, you know, 10 days in the scheme of things is not that long to project a boulder. It's like that's actually pretty short, I think. If you have good training capacity and you can get out a couple times a week, like that's not even a whole season. That's like 5 or 6 weeks of a season. It's hard to convey these lessons. And I agree with you. We're kind of bite-sizing our attention the same way we are, you know, by watching shorter and shorter videos on a smaller and smaller screen. I feel like it is happening with climbing a little bit too. I still meet tons of people who dig in really hard to projects, but it is interesting to me that like if you go on Sendage or 8A or Kaya and you look at Leavenworth or you look at Chattanooga, they're all sorted by what boulder has been sent the most. So if I pull up Chattanooga on Kaya, I'm just going to see Tennessee Thong or whatever the most popular boulder is in that area. And that's sort of our default sort, instead of, you know, like, what about the ones I've never heard of, but they're like actually really sick? They're just like a little bit under the radar, you know, or I don't know. I'm trying to reconnect with that side of climbing. I think that there's something really, really valuable there. And I want more of it. I think, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but for me I used to do a lot of first ascents, and I think that was really, really good for my climbing. But one thing that I'm realizing now is it contained a ton of voluntary hardship. Oh, for sure. Because you just fucking
ever do
that. You just like break
terrible to me.
You just break holds and you're, you know, skrittle and like moss and just so much stuff happens that is in the way of you sending and has nothing to do with the actual moves. It's just the experience being harder than it would otherwise be. Like I did some of this yesterday. I'm actually like, I have tons of, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but I got granite rash like super hard. And I realized like, oh my God, it's been so long since I like really got fucked up on a boulder just for no reason. Right. It wasn't like because it was really, really super hard. It was just dirty, you know? Right. And I was like, I think this could be really good for me. I need to do like more of this.
Good on ya. Yeah, I've never had the desire to bushwhack through through the woods and try and find something. But I'm I don't got that that kind of voluntary urge.
You got an app to block yourself from Instagram, so you're a step ahead of me on that.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I think you made a really good point about meeting people where they're at, and like I think there is obviously a balance, and like it is good to still have those quicker wins and staying motivated while also working on something harder, but also just understanding where you're at for a day or for a season and figuring out like what is your tolerance for failure and for frustration in that moment. And like maybe it is like a really stressful time in your life, and it's just like I need climbing to be fun. That's what I need from the sport right now, and like I don't want to struggle on a project that I need to get on for 10 days. I just need to get on top of a boulder and like be outside and just enjoy the experience, and chase maybe more of that pleasure side of things rather than the those kind of longer term, harder to achieve things. But I think just being aware of it, of like, oh, am I just like swiping through these board climbs and just like, oh, I didn't flash it, let me just go on to the next one. Is there just like a lack of awareness or intentionality there? And just like maybe just digging into why maybe that tendency is there. But at the end of the day, it's like just comes down to what you want to get out of climbing. And I think it's totally okay to be like, nope, I just want to have fun. I don't want to work on anything for more than 2 days. And that's where I'm at with climbing and where it is in my life. But other times, if it is a possibility of like, maybe I should dig into a project and like suffer a little bit. And
it's just good to know where your comfort zone is, and then to know whether you should be in it with where you're at, like in your life, basically. Because like if you want to progress in climbing and you want to like really try to perform, like what we're talking about is people who are like, probably not 1%ers, but like a lot of people who go climbing are just trying to have fun and just trying to enjoy it. And then I think a lot of those people sort of graduate to this stage where they're like, well, I don't just want to have fun. Like I also want to like push myself and see what I can accomplish. And like, if that's what you're trying to do, then you can't stay in your comfort zone, because that's the opposite of pushing yourself. And your comfort zone could be trying to quick tick stuff or just scrolling through benchmarks. And I think comfort zone can just as easily be just turbo projecting, and you sort of need some transparency with yourself or with your coach or whatever in order to figure that out, because it does vary person to person. But I think it's valid to have those conversations with yourself and really try to figure out what you're trying to get out of it. It's I wish it was easier than it is. It's complicated. Yeah.
Well, as is anything that's worthwhile, right?
Yeah. That's good. I'm glad you brought that up. That was a useful side quest. I think I heard your dog shake her collar. What's your dog's name again?
Addy.
Addy. Okay, yeah. What is she, a mutt?
Yeah, she's a rescue. Addy, do you want to come over? You don't like pick up, but it's gonna happen. The struggles.
Hi, puppy. Yeah, she's cute.
She's like I think she's like a cattle dog mix, but
yeah.
Yep. Picked her up from the shelter.
Does she prefer bouldering or sport climbing?
What do you think, Addy? What do you like? I think she likes the sport climbing because she gets to hike more.
Nice.
She likes running around, that's for sure. And the sport climbing is in like more remote areas, so she can be off leash and not bother anyone.
Good for her. Cool. I feel like I know the answer to this question, but sandstone or granite?
Ooh. That's complicated. That's a complicated question. Rock quality-wise, sandstone. It's just the best. Feature-wise, for my own climbing, granite. I can just climb. I can climb harder on granite. Just me better.
Same. I got to come down to Chattanooga for a while and see if that's really true, because I've heard the sandstone there is very granite like. So
Oh, really? Interesting. It is like it is harder than the stuff in the Southwest. It's got a lot more quartz in it.
the Southwest sandstone I find so fucking hard to
Really?
climb on. Yeah,
Yeah.
like difficult,
Yeah. Yeah.
not like dense. Yeah, good stuff
Yeah,
though.
no, the rock here is it's the best.
Yeah.
I would say I'm biased, but I am biased, but yeah, it's the best.
No, I regularly hear that, and that the new is the best sport crag
Yeah.
in America. I've heard that
Yeah.
several times. So
The new is like super bullet,
it's on the list.
good sandstone.
How can people work with you, Juliet?
I am on Instagram at Juliet_Amanda, and then my website is julietamanda.com. Right now, I do have a couple of custom program spots available, and then I also have a training membership that's a little bit more self-guided.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to leave people with? Any final wisdom?
Have fun. Enjoy the sport. Challenge yourself. Yeah.
Nice. That pretty much covers it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.